and welcome to my GAMMANS art channel. This week I am going to show you something a little bit different, and that is how I create my drippy, textured section of the painting. And a bit like this one here, which is conveniently placed in the background. And no, I am not pretending like I'm in a music video. It's just really hot in my studio, so I have a big fan on. As usual, your feedback is very, very welcome, so please do like and subscribe and comment and give it a thumbs up. That would help me out so much. If you do have any comments, then I will get back to you straight away. In the meantime, I really, really hope that you enjoy the video. Thanks for watching.
So these are a few examples of ones I've done already with the drippy bits to the sides of the paintings. And as you can see, a lot of them are of London or the Thames, but that bit really tends to add something to the painting. It sort of goes from a very detailed skyline cityscape and then sort of fades into nothing, which can look really, really effective, I think. So you can see Tower Bridge in that one, that is very, very detailed, and then it goes into just a blurry nothingness that looks like water and reflections. So here I'm just showing you the left-hand side of the painting. The right-hand side I did earlier, and the dark blue drips here are really acting more like shading than anything else really. So instead of smoothing that dark colour in with my hands, I've used a paintbrush and drips to really create a tonal value to the painting. So as the eye looks further outwards from the centre of the painting to the edges, instead of shading it as I normally do kind of with my hands, I've used those really strong vertical lines because the emphasis on the rest of the painting is really in that horizontal line, and you can tell this from the bridge, which is very, very horizontal. It gives a strong horizontal accent, and obviously the skyline as well, which is very horizontal. The clouds break away in a horizontal pattern as well. So those lines and those drips are really, really important because they're going to add those vertical lines which help to balance out the composition and balance out the painting. So the main rule here is to kind of stick to the colours that you've used for the rest of the painting. So that dark blue is made up, it's Prussian blue, and it's made up of just a really, really diluted form of the paint. So I'm getting a thick brush and diluting it with white spirit, and it's just plain Prussian blue, and then at times I've added a little bit of turquoise, philanthro turquoise, and also just green as well, and just to make those kind of turquoisey watercolours. And they're the same colours I've used in the rest of the painting, but as I said, they're in their darkest, purest form, so they come across like shadows at the bottom of the painting. And here you can see where those drippy bits really fit in contextually with the rest of the painting, because I'm sort of lining the water's edge here with the lights and the textures and the reflections of those sparkly, twinkly lights at the water's edge on the embankment in London. So the drippy bits become a sort of background for that waterside reflection scene, and that is the finished piece. So this one's a really, really big painting actually. It's 1 metre squared, and I've got to be careful to make sure that the abstract bit I'm working on is the right size for the 1 metre square painting. So I'm concentrating on that too. And I'm just using the same colours that I've worked into the rest of the painting, so those turquoises and the maroons as well that I'm about to use. And I'm not really introducing many new colours here because it's all about making the painting work tonally. And that abstract section of the painting has to fit in with the rest of it, so that's where those colours come in. That's why I'm using those same colours as well. But it is also possible to use those more brighter tones in this area, and you can get away with more here. So I'm using the brighter oranges and brighter yellows you'll see me use more, and they're really, really vibrant, but they can work slightly more in this section as opposed to in the rest of the painting because it doesn't detract from the scene. So this painting has Big Ben and the London skyline, and it's so iconic, and you can tell exactly where it is from the bridge and the rest that's going on, and I don't want to detract too much, so it's important to keep the colours the same, but you can also get away with a bit more, as I said. So I'm using those oranges and being a bit freer with the colours there. And basically what I'm doing is blending the colours and then dripping over the top. So it creates that layer and that textural effect, which is really, really nice. And as I said, it really is a nice contrast from the detail of the rest of the painting. So you'll see the picture at the end and I'll show you, but the background is very, very detailed. As I said, there's London Eye and all those kind of iconic monuments, and this bit is a really, really different part of the painting, but it sort of ties together and works because the colours are similar, and because I've used drips in the rest of the painting, it works well as a whole. The reason I chose to put these abstract parts in the painting is because I think that it stops it looking too like a generic cityscape. So it sort of takes it out of that traditional look and into, as I said, the more abstract. And that's really, really interesting to me, and how those two things combine. So the more detailed areas and the more abstract areas and what they look like together. So that's really, really what I'm trying to work on here. You can see I've added the yellows, the oranges and the vibrant pinks as well in this bit, and that is because I want this section to look alive and vibrant against the rest of the painting, but it also has to reflect those more brighter tones that I am going to depict in the work. So for example, the bridge area is going to have those twinkly lights, they're going to be orange and yellow, and then that is then going to reflect in this abstract part where the river sort of comes to a close. And that's going to bring the painting together as a whole, but it's also going to allow me to be a bit more freer with those bright colours because they may look out of place in the rest of it. So this is really where I can be as free as possible, really. And once again, those strong vertical drips and lines are going to really counteract the horizontal accents to the piece. And there is the finished picture. So you can see that there's a balance created with the abstract tones, the more detailed settings, and also the vertical and horizontal lines as well. This piece is also a cityscape piece, and I'm going to show you how I create the bottom left hand corner, which is going to be very similar to the other painting that you've just seen me do, but with different tones and different textures. And because obviously this is a very abstract part of the piece, no two pieces are going to look the same or similar, so it's really, really fun for me to do this part, and because I don't know how it's going to look, and because obviously the paint has its own personality too, and because you dilute it, you really change its consistency and you change how it works, it can be a little bit unpredictable. So that's also quite an exciting part too. A bit scary at times as well, because obviously it can go really wrong and you'll see me rework things over and over again, but generally speaking, it's a really, really fun part for me to do. So I'm using the same tones as in the rest of the piece, those turquoises, the purples and the azures, the blues, but I'm also adding a more earthy tone to it. So I'm giving it the browns and the greens and also those azure colours, just to really bring out the rest of the painting and make sure it works as a whole as well. I'm adding a lot of yellow into this part too, because it's important to still reflect those colours of the sky and the colours of the sunset, and I'm using the Nepal yellow in that and really, really working that into the foreground as well. So it also looks like the light has been brought down into the foreground, because it's important that that area doesn't look too dark against the rest of it, and too heavy. So I'm adding little bits, highlighting here and there. You can see I've used the Prussian blue again, which is really, really dark in its natural form without any mixing with any white or anything. So that can be a really, really good low lighter and provides a really nice alternative to using black. So I'm just really depicting those areas of the embankment and the side. Again, this one's undone too. I'll show you at the end so you can, I'm sure you'll recognise it. But I'm really just using it to also separate the colours. So because I've used browns and greens and smudged them into each other, it can be really nice to use that dark blue to almost highlight the different sections of colours and drip in front of it to give it some structure almost, which is quite difficult when it's such an abstract part of the piece. So that's what's really giving it the structure and the context, is that darkness, because otherwise it can look just a bit like a blurry mess really. But those darker tones just help to depict what's going on and lead the eye around a bit. So I'm just sort of using the same purples and the blues to highlight areas, and then I'm low lighting other areas with the browns and the dark blues, but really I'm just making sure that everything mixes together, and but that also it doesn't detract from what that area actually is, and that's the embankment. So I'm making sure that the lines are quite clear so it doesn't become lost, that the image doesn't become lost in the abstraction, but so that it also has a certain element of fluidity and freedom to it too. So I'm using a brown and a black at the moment to really highlight that foreground area, and the darkness works really, really well here because it almost is a huge contrast from the bright light in the background, and directly downwards from where the sunset falls in the piece, it gets really, really dark, which can almost just, that creates a sort of a conversation between light and dark and can be really interesting to look at. So as I'm sure some of you are aware, the complementary colour to blue is a really, really bright orange, and you're going to see me add that in soon enough. There we go. So it's bright orange and bright red, and those complementary colours together really make the piece pop, and it's an ideal setting to try out those really, really bright colours because and those colour relationships, just because it is the more abstract part of the piece and you can get away with a lot more. So I'm still low lighting and highlighting and adding those drips to the section to give it movement, and again really, really emphasize those vertical lines against the very strong horizontal accent. So I'm just making sure to create a balanced composition. So you can see the relationship here between the really, really light colours of the blues and the really, really dark blue as well is looking really interesting. And as I said before, it's a type of shading that I'm doing too. So the dark blue acts as a definer for the piece. It's defining certain areas, it's shading certain areas, it's highlighting other areas, and it's sectioning off bits too, as well as sort of giving that area structure as well. So I'm continuing to just add bits and drips here and there and just work on it really. And as I said, this is all sort of me doing it by instinct purely. I'm not really looking at anything, I'm not looking at any images, I'm just looking at the colours and feeling the colours and seeing where I'm going to take it from there. You'll notice as well I'm not really using a lot of brush work. I am using the brushes to create the drips, but I'm also using mainly the palette knife on my hands. That is the finished picture, and you can see a real close-up of those drippy bits against the rest of it. It's good to see it in context too. This is the painting from last week, but I just thought I would recap on those drips that I've used that really, really help to define the painting and give it a strong sense of composition.
So those are a few examples of how I do the drippy bits at the side to add a little bit of interest and a little bit of abstraction to the piece. I really, really hope you enjoyed the video. Please do like and subscribe and give it a big thumbs up. Thanks for watching.